She never intended to become his wife. Standing in the rain outside Drake Tower, Maya clutched her termination notice, another casualty of corporate downsizing. 5 floors above, Ethan Drake, the blind CEO worth billions, had no idea she even existed. 3 weeks later, through a twist of fate that even Shakespeare would call far-fetched, she sat across from him in a marriage license office. "This arrangement benefits us both," he said, his voice devoid of emotion, sightless eyes hidden behind dark glasses. "You need financial stability. I need a wife to secure my company's future." His words were pragmatic, cold. But when his fingers accidentally brushed hers while signing the document, she felt him flinch, not with disgust, but recognition. "Your hands," he whispered. "They're calloused. You've worked hard your entire life, haven't you?" In that moment, Maya realized blindness sees what eyes cannot. Maya Rodriguez had spent her entire life being invisible. Growing up in foster care, scrubbing toilets at 16 to pay for textbooks, working double shifts through college only to graduate into a recession, her story was the kind America pretends doesn't exist. When Drake Enterprises hired her as a night shift data entry clerk, she thought she'd finally caught a break. Now, clutching her pink slip in the November rain, she watched water dissolve the ink like tears. Budget cuts. Last hired, first fired. No severance for temporary workers. She never meant to trespass into Ethan Drake's private elevator. She'd simply ducked inside the wrong door while hiding from security, having snuck back to collect the photo of her late grandmother she'd forgotten at her desk. The elevator shot upward, 60 floors to the executive penthouse where the reclusive CEO lived since losing his sight 3 years ago. The elevator doors opened to darkness. Maya stepped out, disoriented, into what felt like an abandoned floor. Then she heard glass shatter, followed by a grunt of pain. "Hello?" A deep voice called out. "Richardson, is that you?" Maya froze. Everyone knew about Ethan Drake, the tech genius who'd revolutionized medical software, who'd gone blind after a lab explosion, who'd become a recluse rumored to be losing control of his company to his board of directors. I'm sorry," she stammered. "Wrong floor." She turned to flee, but his voice stopped her. "Wait." His command was soft but absolute. "You're not Richardson." "Who are you?" Maya swallowed hard. "Just someone who got fired today." "I shouldn't be here." Silence followed. Then, "Come closer." Hesitantly, she approached. In the dim light, she made out his form sitting beside an overturned table, broken glass at his feet, blood trickling from his palm. "You're hurt," she said, instinctively kneeling to examine his hand. "It's nothing." His face turned toward her, voice, eyes unfocused. "Why did you come up here?" "I told you, wrong floor." "I was collecting my things after being terminated." He tilted his head. "You smell like rain and coffee. Not like the executives or their assistants." "Data entry. Night shift. Basement level." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Honesty. Refreshing. That night changed everything. After bandaging his hand, she found herself telling him about her grandmother, about the bills piling up, about the apartment she would lose next month. He listened in a way no one ever had. "I need someone," he said finally. "The board is moving to declare me incompetent. My blindness has become their weapon. They claim I need supervision, a stable home life. They're forcing me to either marry within the month or lose voting control." Maya stared at him. That can't be legal. The company bylaws are complex. My father had unusual ideas about leadership and family. He pressed his fingertips together. I need a wife. Someone who won't betray me to the board. Someone with nothing to gain by destroying me. Someone desperate, Maya translated bitterly. Someone honest, he corrected. I'm offering a business arrangement. 1 year of marriage. You'll want for nothing. When it ends, you'll have enough to restart your life anywhere you choose. She should have said no. She should have walked away. But the memory of foster homes, of hunger, of fighting for every scrap her entire life made the words stick in her throat. Why me? You don't even know me. His sightless eyes seemed to find hers in the darkness. Because when you found me bleeding, your first instinct was to help. Not to take a photo for social media, not to steal something while I was vulnerable. Just help. The deception was simple: pretend to be in love. Pretend this wasn't about saving his company and keeping her from homelessness. Pretend that when he placed his mother's ring on her finger, it meant something more than a business transaction between two strangers, one broken by circumstances, the other by darkness. The wedding was set for December 21 st, the winter solstice, the longest night of the year. Fitting, Maya thought, for a marriage born in darkness. The Drake family attorney had prepared a contract thick as a phone book. Maya signed without reading it. What choice did she have? Her bank account held $143.27, and her former landlord's eviction notice was already taped to her door. Wear this, Ethan said the morning of the ceremony, sliding a box across his desk. Inside lay a crimson dress that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. The board members will be watching. We need to look convincing. Red isn't traditional for weddings, she observed, touching the silk fabric reverently. I remember red, he said quietly. It's one of the last colors I saw before the accident. The ceremony took place in the Drake Estate's conservatory, glass walls revealing snow falling silently outside. Only 15 people attended, board members, attorneys, a few loyal executives. No friends. No family. Not a single person who cared whether either of them was happy. Maya walked down the aisle alone, the borrowed heels pinching her feet, the diamond necklace heavy around her throat. Ethan stood at the altar, his posture military straight, unseeing eyes hidden behind dark glasses. His custom suit probably cost more than 4 years of her college tuition. They looked like characters from different stories, accidentally printed on the same page. Does anyone object to this union? The justice of the peace asked, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. Samuel Richardson, the board chairman, smiled thinly. We're all quite pleased, he said, though his eyes said otherwise. Maya didn't miss the calculating glances exchanged among the board members, like wolves temporarily denied a meal but still circling. When Ethan took her hand to place the ring, his fingers were cold. But they didn't tremble like hers did. This was business for him, a transaction, nothing more. I, Ethan James Drake, take you, Maya Elena Rodriguez. The words felt hollow, rehearsed. Yet when his thumb brushed against her pulse point, something shifted in his expression, a slight furrow between his brows, as if he'd detected something unexpected. For a heartbeat, she wondered if he could feel her fear, her desperation, through the flutter of her wrist. I, Maya Elena Rodriguez, take you, Ethan James Drake. Her voice cracked on his name. One of the board members smirked. Later, at the small reception, Maya stood beside her new husband, a champagne flute clutched in her hand, untouched. The conversation flowed around her, filled with terms she didn't understand: market shares, quarterly projections, pending acquisitions. "You're very quiet, Mrs. Drake," Richardson said, materializing beside her. His cologne was overwhelming, his smile predatory. "One might think you're uncomfortable in your new position." "I'm just taking it all in," she replied carefully. "Yes, quite a change from the basement, isn't it?" His eyes glittered with malice. "Though I wonder how long it will last." Ethan has always been impulsive. Even before the accident. Before she could respond, Ethan's hand found the small of her back, warm and steady. "Richardson," he said, his voice deceptively pleasant. "I see you've met my wife." "Indeed. I was just telling her how surprised we all were by this whirlwind romance." "Were you?" Ethan's fingers tightened slightly against Maya's back. "Then you must not have been paying attention. Maya has been the only constant in my life for months. While the board was busy trying to dismantle what my father built, she was helping me rebuild myself." The lie was delivered with such conviction that for a moment, Maya almost believed it herself. Richardson's smile faltered. As the guests departed, snow continued to fall outside, transforming the world into something pure and unrecognizable. Just like her life had become in the span of 3 weeks: transformed, unrecognizable, terrifyingly beautiful. That night, Ethan showed her to her bedroom separate from his, as their agreement specified. "Thank you," he said formally, standing in the doorway. "You played your part well." Maya nodded, then realized he couldn't see it. "You too." He turned to leave, then paused. "Maya. Why did your voice break when you said my name during the vows?" "Because I've never belonged anywhere before," she wanted to say. "Because even fake belonging feels better than none at all." Instead, she said, "Just nervous." He nodded slowly. "Good night, Mrs. Drake." The door closed between them, and Maya sank onto the edge of the enormous bed, still wearing the red dress, still feeling the phantom pressure of his hand against her back. The Drake mansion contained 43 rooms, but silence filled them all. Maya spent her first week as Mrs. Drake learning the geography of emptiness, the hollow echo of the grand staircase, the mausoleum quiet of the library, the tomb-like stillness of the indoor pool no one used anymore. Ethan kept to his office, emerging only for the carefully choreographed public appearances their agreement required. A charity gala. A board meeting. A press conference where he kept his hand on her waist and called her "my light in the darkness" with such convincing tenderness that she almost forgot it was a line they'd rehearsed. At night, Maya wandered the halls, unable to sleep in the too soft bed with its too many pillows. On the 7th night, she found herself in the kitchen at 3 a.m., making the cheap instant coffee that reminded her of home. "You're still awake?" She startled, nearly dropping her mug. Ethan stood in the doorway in sweatpants and a t-shirt, his hair tousled, dark glasses absent. Without them, his eyes were startlingly expressive, deep brown with flecks of gold, staring slightly above her left shoulder. "So are you," she countered, watching him navigate the kitchen with practiced precision, trailing his fingertips along the countertop. "I don't sleep much. Not since." He gestured vaguely at his eyes. "Does it hurt?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. He paused, seeming surprised by her interest. "Not physically." "Not anymore." Maya understood the implication. Some pain transcended the physical. What does it look like? She asked softly. In your mind, I mean. Ethan leaned against the counter, his face turned toward her voice. Not blackness. That's what people assume. It's more like fog. Shapes sometimes. Memories of colors. His mouth quirked. I remember your dress was red. It was. A comfortable silence settled between them, broken only by the soft ticking of the kitchen clock. Tell me something true, he said suddenly. What? We're strangers playing at marriage. Tell me something true about yourself. Something real. Maya cradled her coffee mug, the warmth seeping into her perpetually cold hands. I've never slept in a bed by myself until now. Foster homes, college dorms, cheap apartments with roommates. Always sharing space. Is that why you wander at night? Too much space. She stared at him. How did you know I wander? The floors creak in the east wing. Third floorboard from the library. Fifth step on the back staircase. His lips curved slightly. And you wear lavender lotion. The scent lingers. Heat bloomed in her cheeks. Your turn. Something true. He was quiet so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I'm afraid all the time. The confession hung in the air between them, raw and unexpected. Of what? Forgetting. What blue looks like. My mother's face. The view from my childhood window. His knuckles whitened around his own mug. The board isn't wrong about me. I am losing control. Not because I'm blind, but because I'm lost in it. Without thinking, Maya reached across the counter and touched his hand. He flinched but didn't pull away. Your hands are always cold, he observed. Poor circulation. Poor everything, he said, but without malice. That's why you're here, isn't it? Yes. He nodded, appreciating the honesty. We should get some sleep. Richardson is coming tomorrow to review the quarterly reports. But the next night, she found him in the kitchen again. And the next. Their midnight conversations became the only real thing in their carefully constructed facade. She learned he played chess in his head to fall asleep. He discovered she hummed while making coffee always the same song, one her grandmother had sung. On the 14th night, he asked, if you could have anything in the world, what would it be? Maya considered the question seriously. Security, she finally said. Not just money. The feeling that the ground won't disappear beneath my feet at any moment. Not love. There was something unreadable in his expression. Love is a luxury, she said softly. Like believing in happy endings. Ethan's hand found hers in the darkness, his touch deliberate this time. You should have both. For one suspended moment, Maya felt something dangerous unfurl in her chest, something that felt strangely like hope. Then he withdrew his hand and the moment shattered. Good night, Maya. He left her alone in the kitchen, the ghost of his touch still warming her skin. Later, lying in her too-big bed, Maya faced an uncomfortable truth: their arrangement had a ticking clock. 1 year. And 3 weeks had already slipped away. When it ended, when he paid her off and she disappeared from his life, these quiet kitchen conversations would become just another thing she'd lost. The thought kept her awake until dawn, when she finally drifted off and dreamed of a chess game where all the pieces were red, and every move led to the same inevitable end. January brought bitter cold and unwelcome guests. Maya was arranging fresh flowers in the conservatory, a small task she'd taken upon herself, knowing Ethan wouldn't see them but finding comfort in the routine anyway when Richardson arrived unannounced, flanked by two board members and a woman Maya had never seen before. "Mrs. Drake," Richardson's voice dripped false warmth. "How domestic you look." Maya straightened, wiping her hands on her jeans. She'd stopped dressing for show when there was no audience. "Mr. Richardson. We weren't expecting you until Thursday." Clearly. His gaze swept dismissively over her casual attire. "Is Ethan available? We have pressing matters to discuss." Before she could answer, the elegant blonde woman stepped forward, extending a manicured hand. "I don't believe we've met. I'm Caroline Winters. Ethan and I were close before his accident." The emphasis on close was unmistakable. Maya shook her hand briefly, noting the calculating assessment in Caroline's eyes. "He's in his office. I'll let him know you're here." "No need," Richardson interjected. "We know the way." They brushed past her, Caroline's expensive perfume lingering like a threat. Maya followed, unease prickling along her spine. She'd learned enough about corporate politics in the past month to recognize an ambush. She arrived at Ethan's office just as raised voices spilled into the hallway. "Absolutely unacceptable decline in the third quarter," Richardson was saying. "The shareholders are questioning your leadership." "The shareholders," Ethan replied coldly, "or just you and your three proxies on the board?" Maya slipped into the room quietly. Ethan sat behind his desk, posture rigid, dark glasses firmly in place. He didn't acknowledge her entrance, but she saw his head tilt slightly in her direction. He knew she was there. "Ethan, darling." Caroline's voice softened to silk. "We're concerned about you. This hasty marriage, the isolation, refusing the new treatment options." "My marriage is not the board's concern," Ethan cut her off. "Neither is my medical care." Richardson circled the desk like a predator. "Your father's company is absolutely our concern. And your new wife," he glanced dismissively at Maya, "has an interesting background. Foster care. Community college. Fired from her position here due to, what was it? Ah yes, failure to meet performance standards." Maya's stomach dropped. "They'd investigated her." "Did she tell you she was fired, Ethan? Or did she have a different story when she somehow ended up in your penthouse that night?" Ethan's hands flattened on his desk. "Careful, Richardson. We're simply concerned this marriage might be opportunistic." Caroline laid her hand on Ethan's shoulder. He didn't shake it off, and something twisted painfully in Maya's chest. "After all, you and I were discussing reconciliation just before your impulsive decision." "Were we?" Ethan's voice was dangerously soft. "I recall you finding my condition inconvenient. I didn't sign up to be a caretaker, I believe were your exact words." Caroline flushed. "I was upset. You pushed everyone away after the accident. Including you," Richardson added. "Which makes this sudden marriage all the more suspect." Maya found her voice. "I think you should leave." All eyes turned to her, all except Ethan's, which stared unseeing at the wall. "Excuse me." Richardson's tone suggested she'd just crawled out from under a rock. "You heard me." Something hot and protective surged through her. "You come into his home uninvited, insult his judgment, question his marriage." "Our marriage," Ethan corrected quietly. "Our marriage," she amended, heart stuttering at the calm certainty in his voice. "Either state your actual business or leave." Richardson's face hardened. "Our business," Mrs. Drake, is the future of this company. The board is voting next week on the Singapore merger. Ethan opposes it. We're here to encourage him to reconsider by threatening to expose our marriage as fraudulent. Maya stepped closer to Ethan's desk. Go ahead. Tell everyone the CEO married an ex-employee from the data entry pool. I'm sure the press will love the Cinderella story. Caroline's perfectly composed expression cracked. You little gold digger. That's enough. Ethan stood abruptly. Maya, would you give us a moment? The dismissal stung, but she nodded. Of course. As she turned to leave, Ethan added, and Maya, could you cancel our dinner reservations for tomorrow? I think we'll stay in after all. They didn't have dinner reservations. It was their code, his signal that something was wrong. The moment the door closed behind her, Maya rushed to Ethan's private study and did what he'd taught her for emergencies. She called his attorney. Hours later, after Richardson and his entourage had departed, Maya found Ethan in the library, standing by the window, one hand pressed against the cold glass. They're gone, she said softly. Thank you for calling Thomas. His voice was strained. He'll handle the legal side. What aren't you telling me? Ethan turned from the window. Richardson has evidence. Security footage from the night we met. It shows you entering the private elevator, coming to the penthouse. Maya's blood ran cold. That makes it look like you planned it? Like our meeting wasn't coincidental. He removed his dark glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose wearily. They're threatening to take it to the press, paint you as a con artist who targeted a blind man, invalidate our marriage unless I approve the merger. Which would cost hundreds of jobs, Maya finished, remembering their late-night conversations about his opposition to outsourcing the company's manufacturing division. Yes. Silence stretched between them, heavy with implications. I'll go, she finally said. I'll leave, tell them I was using you. No. The word was sharp, definitive. He moved toward her, hand outstretched until it found her shoulder. No, he repeated, softer. I won't let them do that to you. It's true, though, isn't it? Bitterness welled up in her throat. I am using you. For security. Just like you said that first night. His fingers tightened on her shoulder. Is that still all this is to you? The question hung between them, dangerous in its simplicity. Maya couldn't answer, not without admitting that somewhere between midnight conversations and morning coffee, between his hand finding hers in the dark and the gentle way he said her name, something had changed. I need to think, she whispered, pulling away from his touch. That night, neither of them came to the kitchen. The silence between them was no longer peaceful, it had teeth. February arrived with relentless snow and the weight of unspoken truths. For 10 days, Maya and Ethan circled each other cautiously, their midnight kitchen meetings suspended, their carefully constructed routine fractured. The board meeting loomed, scheduled for Valentine's Day, Richardson's idea of corporate irony. On the 11th night, unable to bear the silence any longer, Maya ventured to Ethan's private study and knocked softly. Come in, he called, voice muffled. She found him sitting in darkness, no lamps lit despite the late hour. Of course he had no need for them. She'd gotten so used to illuminating rooms for her own benefit that the darkness startled her. It's me, she said, closing the door behind her. I know. He didn't turn toward her. Your footsteps. Lighter than the housekeeper's. More hesitant than Thomas's. You pause before you enter a room, like you're not sure you belong there. The accuracy of his observation made her chest ache. We need to talk about the board meeting. Yes, he agreed, finally turning in his chair. We do. In the dimness, with only moonlight filtering through the windows, his face was all planes and shadows. Without his dark glasses, his eyes reflected the faint light, giving him an almost otherworldly appearance. I've been thinking about our options, he began formally. I want a divorce. The words fell between them like stones into still water. Maya hadn't planned to say them, hadn't even known they were lodged in her throat until they escaped. Ethan went very still. I see. No, you don't, she said, and immediately regretted the poor choice of words. I mean, if we divorce now, before the board meeting, Richardson loses his leverage. He can't threaten to expose our marriage as fraudulent if it's already over. You can tell everyone it was a mistake, that I misled you. Stop. His voice was like a whip crack in the quiet room. Is that what you think I want? To throw you to the wolves? It makes the most sense. For whom? He stood abruptly, moving toward her with uncanny precision. Not for you. They destroy you, Maya. Your reputation, your future prospects, everything. I've survived worse. That doesn't mean you should have to. He was closer now, close enough that she could see the muscle working in his jaw. Why are you really suggesting this? Maya wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the room's warmth. Because I can't keep pretending. Pretending what? That this is just business. That I don't. She stopped, the words stuck in her throat. Ethan's expression shifted, something unreadable passing over his features. That you don't what? Care, she whispered. I wasn't supposed to care about you. About any of this. It was supposed to be a transaction. He was silent for so long she thought he wouldn't respond. Then, with deliberate slowness, he raised his hand to her face. His fingers hovered a breath away from her cheek. May I? He asked quietly. She nodded, then remembered. Yes. His fingertips brushed her cheekbone, feather-light, then traced the contours of her face, the arch of her eyebrow, the slope of her nose, the curve of her lips. It was the first time he'd touched her this way, as if memorizing her through touch alone. I know what you look like, he said softly. Not from touching you now, but from listening to you move through the world. The way you hum when you're content. The careful way you handle fragile things. How you always face the windows when you speak, like you're reaching for light. Maya's heart thundered in her chest. Ethan. I'm not finished. His thumb brushed the corner of her mouth. I know you bite your lip when you're nervous. You're doing it now. I know you curl your toes when you're standing still too long. I know you smell like lavender and cheap coffee and something that's just you. His hand dropped away, leaving her skin tingling in its wake. I see you, Maya. More clearly than I've seen anyone since losing my sight. His voice lowered. And I'm terrified by what that means. What does it mean? She asked, barely breathing. It means this stopped being business for me weeks ago. He turned away, moving back to his desk with practiced steps. But that doesn't change the reality. The board meeting. Richardson's threats. The merger that would gut the company my father built. Maya followed him, newfound courage propelling her forward. What if there's another way? What if we fight? How? By telling the truth. Some of it, anyway. Ideas were forming rapidly in her mind. We admit we met the night I was fired. We say it was chance, which it was. We say we connected, which we did. We just don't mention the arrangement. Ethan shook his head. Richardson has the security footage, which shows exactly what I just described. A chance meeting. You can say you were drawn to my honesty, that after Caroline and the others treated you like an invalid, you found someone who saw you as a person. That's remarkably close to the truth, he said quietly. The best lies always are. Maya took a deep breath. There's just one problem. What? For this to work, we'd have to convince everyone that this marriage is real. Not just on paper. Real. Understanding dawned on his face. You mean? We'd have to act like we're in love. In public and private. No separate bedrooms. No careful distance. We'd be under a microscope. The silence that followed was deafening. Ethan moved to the window, his back to her, shoulders rigid beneath his sweater. And when the year is up, he finally asked. When our contract ends? The question hit her like a physical blow. I don't know, she admitted. I hadn't thought that far ahead. He turned back to her, his expression unguarded in a way she'd never seen before. Vulnerable. Uncertain. I have a confession to make, he said softly. I've been meeting with doctors. There's a new procedure, experimental, but promising. Gene therapy combined with neural implants. It might restore partial vision. Maya stared at him, stunned. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was afraid. His voice cracked slightly. Afraid of hope. Afraid of seeing a world that moved on without me. Afraid of... He hesitated. Seeing you and finding out that the woman I've created in my mind doesn't match reality. You've been imagining what I look like. The thought made her simultaneously touched and terrified. Constantly. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Dark hair, I think. Smaller than average. Your voice comes from lower than most women's. Strong hands from years of work. Maya swallowed hard. I'm nothing special to look at. That, he said with sudden fierceness, is not for you to decide. She moved closer, drawn by something in his voice. When would this procedure happen? Next month. If I decide to do it? If. He reached for her hand, finding it unerringly in the space between them. I need to know something first. If I could see you, if this becomes more than an arrangement of convenience, what would you want then, Maya? The question stripped her bare, demanding a truth she'd been hiding even from herself. I'd want. Her voice failed her momentarily. I'd want you to see me. Really see me. Not the desperate girl you made a deal with. Not Mrs. Drake, the convenient wife. Just, me. His fingers tightened around hers. I already do. In the moonlit study, with snow falling silently outside, something shifted between them, an invisible barrier crumbling, a truth neither had been brave enough to name taking shape in the darkness. So, Ethan said quietly, we fight. Maya nodded, then leaned forward and pressed her lips to his cheek. We fight. He turned his head, his breath catching, his free hand finding her waist. Maya. Yes. I need to know what I'm fighting for. His voice was barely audible. Is it just your security? Or is it more? The question hung between them, impossible to evade any longer. More, she whispered against his skin. So much more. On March 15, a day ancient Romans would have warned against, Maya sat in a private waiting room at Johns Hopkins Medical Center, staring at the institutional blue carpet until the patterns blurred before her eyes. Down the hall, behind swinging doors marked "Authorized Personnel Only," surgeons were attempting to restore Ethan's sight. The 6 weeks since their confrontation in the study had transformed everything. Their public performance of marital bliss had slowly, inexorably bled into private reality. Shared meals. Shared conversations. Finally, shared space. Maya moving her things into the master bedroom the night before the board meeting, never moving them back out again. The Valentine's Day showdown with the board had gone exactly as they'd planned. Ethan, with Maya's hand firmly in his, had calmly announced his opposition to the Singapore merger, his commitment to keeping jobs domestic, and most devastatingly his knowledge of Richardson's secret negotiations with their competitors. "You seem to have forgotten, Samuel," Ethan had said coolly, "that blindness heightens other senses. Like hearing. Your whispered phone calls in the hallway outside my office were quite informative. Richardson had been forced to resign. The merger had been shelved. And Maya and Ethan had walked out hand in hand, a united front no one dared question anymore. But today, the performance had fallen away entirely. Today, there was only raw fear as Maya imagined Ethan lying unconscious, surgeons implanting experimental technology directly into his optic nerve and visual cortex. Dr. Patel had been honest about the risks. Best case scenario: partial restoration of vision. Light, movement, perhaps some color and shapes. Worst case: no improvement, or potentially, neurological complications. Brain damage, Ethan had translated flatly. A very small risk, Dr. Patel had assured them. But yes, a possibility. Now, Maya checked her watch for the 20th time. 6 hours into what was supposed to be a 5-hour procedure. The waiting room door opened. Caroline Winters stood in the doorway, immaculate in a cashmere coat, her expression unreadable. "I heard about the surgery," she said without preamble. Maya stiffened. "How did you find out?" "Ethan and I shared friends for 10 years before you appeared," Caroline replied, a subtle barb beneath the neutral tone. She sat down uninvited, arranging herself with practiced grace. "I'm not here to fight." "Then why are you here?" Caroline studied her, blue eyes clinically assessing. "Curiosity. I wanted to see what kind of woman steps into a blind billionaire's life and, within 3 months, has him risking experimental brain surgery. That's not. What happened? Did you get tired of a husband who couldn't see you? Or did you realize his fortune would be worth more with a fully functioning CEO at the helm?" The accusation hit with precision accuracy. It was a fear Maya had wrestled with privately, that Ethan might think exactly this, that she'd pushed for the surgery for her own benefit. "You don't know anything about us," Maya said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I know Ethan. I know he was accepting his condition before you came along. I know he was building a life within his limitations." Caroline leaned forward. "And I know desperation when I see it. You were about to be homeless when you met him, weren't you?" Maya's silence was confirmation enough. "That's what I thought." Caroline stood, adjusting her designer scarf. "When the novelty wears off, and it will remember that some of us loved him before he had anything to offer but himself." The door closed behind her with a soft click, leaving Maya alone again, Caroline's words circling like vultures. Had she influenced Ethan's decision? Had her presence in his life pushed him toward a risk he wouldn't otherwise have taken? The waiting room door opened again, and this time Dr. Patel entered, surgical mask hanging loose around his neck, fatigue evident in the slump of his shoulders. Maya stood, heart suspended between beats. "How is he?" "The procedure is complete," Dr. Patel said carefully. "There were no complications during surgery." "But," Maya pressed, hearing the unspoken qualification. "But we won't know if it was successful until the neural implants activate. That will happen gradually over the next 48 hours as the brain adjusts." "Can I see him?" Dr. Patel nodded. "He's in recovery. Still groggy from anesthesia, but asking for you." The recovery room was dimly lit, monitors beeping softly. Ethan lay still, white bandages wrapped around his eyes and forehead, and dripping steadily into his arm. He looked smaller somehow, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen him. "Ethan," she whispered, taking his hand. His fingers tightened around hers. "Maya." His voice was rough from the breathing tube. "You're here." "Of course I'm here." She fought back tears. "Where else would I be? Caroline came to see me. Before the surgery." Maya froze. "What?" "She wanted to wish me luck." His mouth twisted wryly. "And remind me that she'd take me back, sight or no sight, if things don't work out between us." "Generous of her," Maya said, unable to keep the bitterness from her voice. Ethan's thumb stroked the inside of her wrist. "She also suggested you might have ulterior motives for supporting this surgery." The air left Maya's lungs in a painful rush. "And what do you think?" "I think," he shifted, grimacing in discomfort, "that you've never once made me feel like my blindness was a problem that needed fixing." Relief flooded through her. "It's not. It never was." "I know." He squeezed her hand. "I did this for me. Because I want to see the sun again. The sky." Words on a page. His voice softened. "Your face when you're trying not to laugh at my bad jokes." Maya laughed through sudden tears, bringing his knuckles to her lips. "Your jokes are terrible." A faint smile touched his mouth. "See? I can hear it in your voice." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the steady rhythm of the heart monitor marking time. "I'm afraid," Ethan finally admitted, the words barely audible. "Of what?" "That it won't work. That it will. That everything will change." Maya understood with perfect clarity. "Some things won't change," she promised, pressing his palm against her cheek. "Not the important things." 2 days later, in a private room with the blinds drawn to control the light, Dr. Patel carefully removed Ethan's bandages. Maya stood back, pulse racing, as Ethan blinked slowly, his eyes adjusting to even the minimal illumination. "Can you see anything?" Dr. Patel asked, his voice professionally neutral despite the tension in the room. Ethan's gaze moved around the room unfocused, searching. "Light," he said hoarsely. "Shadows. Movement." Dr. Patel nodded. "That's excellent for this stage. The neural pathways need time to strengthen. More vision may return gradually." But Maya saw the disappointment flash across Ethan's face, the hope for more immediate results dashed. Dr. Patel continued his examination, then left them alone, promising to return in an hour with more tests. "It's better than nothing," Ethan said quietly once they were alone. "Light is, more than I've had for 3 years." Maya moved to his bedside, took his hand. "I'm sorry it's not more." "Don't be. I knew the odds." He attempted a smile that didn't reach his eyes. At least I won't bump into as many walls. She bit her lip, hesitating, then asked, "Can you see me at all?" Ethan turned toward her voice, his gaze landing somewhere near her shoulder. "A shape. Movement when you move." He lifted a hand toward her face, the familiar gesture now infused with new meaning. "But I still see you better this way." His fingers traced her features with the same care as always, but now his eyes followed the movement, struggling to connect touch with the shadows he perceived. "Your hair is darker than I imagined," he said softly. "I can tell that much." Maya closed her eyes, leaning into his touch, grief and gratitude tangling in her chest. This partial vision, this glimpse of a world still mostly hidden from him, seemed almost crueler than complete blindness. "Maya." Something in his voice made her open her eyes. He was looking directly at her now, his gaze still unfocused but intent. "I need you to answer something honestly. Anything. If this is all the vision I ever get back, if I'm always somewhere between darkness and light, will you regret staying?" The question cut to the heart of her deepest fear, not that he wouldn't see her, but that he would see her clearly and find her wanting. "No," she said firmly. "Not for a single moment." His expression softened. "Even though our arrangement was only supposed to last a year." "Ethan." She placed her hand over his where it rested against her cheek. "There is no arrangement anymore. There's just us. However you see, whatever comes next." Something shifted in his gaze, a focusing, a sharpening of attention. "You're wearing red," he said suddenly. "I can see it. Not clearly, but it's red." Maya looked down at her sweater, crimson against the sterile white of the hospital room, then back at Ethan's face, alight with wonder. "Red," she confirmed, her voice breaking on the single syllable. "Like our beginning." Ethan pulled her closer, until their foreheads touched, his eyes still struggling to see, but alive with possibility fixed on hers. "Not our beginning," he corrected gently. "Just one chapter in a much longer story." 6 months after the surgery, Ethan's vision had stabilized at what Dr. Patel called functional low vision. He could distinguish shapes, some colors, movement enough to navigate familiar spaces without a cane, enough to recognize Maya by the outline of her silhouette, enough to see the broad strokes of the world without its fine details. Not a miracle, but progress. Not darkness, but not full light either. Maya watched him now from the doorway of his home office, their home office, she reminded herself, still unused to thinking of the Drake estate as partly hers. He sat before a computer with specialized software, the screen's text enlarged to 3 times normal size, his head tilted at the specific angle that best captured his limited field of vision. "You're staring," he said without turning around. "How did you know I was here?" "Lavender lotion. Squeaky floorboard. You're breathing." He swiveled his chair toward her, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Some habits don't change." Maya crossed to him, perching on the edge of the desk. "The board approved the expansion. Unanimously." He reached for her hand with the unconscious certainty of someone who had mapped her presence through touch long before sight. "The new assistive technology division launches next quarter. We'll hire exclusively from vocational programs for the disabled." "They're calling you a visionary again," she said, unable to keep the pride from her voice. "Ironic terminology," he replied dryly. The local business journal had recently featured Ethan on its cover, hailing his remarkable comeback and inspirational transformation of Drake Enterprises into a leader in adaptive technology. The article had mentioned his supportive wife only in passing, attributing his success entirely to his own determination. Maya hadn't minded the omission. What existed between them wasn't for public consumption. "We should celebrate," she suggested. "It's a beautiful day. We could have lunch on the terrace." Ethan tensed almost imperceptibly. Though his vision had improved, bright sunlight remained challenging, overwhelming his sensitive implants, causing headaches and disorientation. "Or," she amended smoothly, "we could order in. That Thai place you like." The gratitude in his expression made her heart contract. After all this time, he still struggled to admit his limitations, even to her. "Actually," he said, standing, "I have something to show you first." He led her through the house to the east wing, to a door she'd never seen opened. The keys jingled in his hand as he unlocked it, the heavy door swinging inward to reveal a large, dusty room with windows covered by heavy drapes. "My mother's studio," he explained, stepping inside. She was a painter. "I haven't been in here since before the accident." Maya followed him into the space, taking in the shrouded canvases, the jars of brushes still waiting on a wooden table, the faint smell of linseed oil somehow persisting after years of disuse. Ethan crossed to the windows and, with a decisive motion, pulled back the drapes. Filtered afternoon light spilled into the room, illuminating dust motes swirling in the air. "I can't see well enough to paint," he said quietly. "But you can." Maya blinked at him in confusion. "I've never painted anything in my life." "But you want to." His gaze, still slightly off-center but warm with certainty, found her. "You stop in front of every gallery we pass. You linger over art books. Your hands move when you look at paintings, like you're tracing the brush strokes." The observation stunned her. Not because it was wrong, but because she'd never articulated the longing even to herself. "I couldn't afford art classes," she said softly. It seemed like such a luxury. "Not anymore." He gestured around the studio. "All of this has been sitting here, unused. It should be yours now." Maya moved to the center of the room, overwhelmed. Sunlight caught the edge of a gilt frame, glinted off glass jars of pigment, transformed the ordinary into something shimmering with possibility. "I wouldn't know where to start," she whispered. "I thought of that." Ethan crossed to a small side table and picked up a business card. "Elena Vasquez. She teaches at the Art Institute. She's expecting your call." Maya took the card, her fingers trembling slightly. "Ethan." "Before you say anything," he interrupted, "this isn't charity. This isn't pity. This is..." He hesitated, searching for words. "This is me seeing you. The real you. Not just the woman who married me in a red dress and saved my company. But the woman who stares at sunsets like she's memorizing colors, who traces patterns in condensation on windows, who sees beauty everywhere but doesn't believe she deserves to capture it." Tears blurred Maya's vision. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll try." He stepped closer, until he was near enough to see the emotion on her face, even with his limited vision. "Say you'll let yourself want things beyond security." The request was gentle but profound, an invitation to step beyond the boundaries of survival that had defined her entire life. "Okay," she said finally. "I'll try." His answering smile was brilliant. That evening, as summer twilight settled over the garden, they sat together on the terrace, the remains of their celebratory dinner on the table between them. Maya had called Elena Vasquez, scheduled her first lesson for the following week. Ethan had listened to the call, his expression quietly pleased. I have something else for you, he said now, reaching into his pocket. A more traditional gift. He placed a small velvet box on the table. Maya stared at it, her heart suddenly racing. Open it, he encouraged. Inside lay a ring, not the ostentatious diamond he'd placed on her finger during their wedding ceremony, but a simple band of rose gold set with a small ruby. I don't understand, she said, looking up at him. We're already married. Are we? His voice was soft but intent. We signed papers. We said vows we didn't mean. We entered into a business arrangement that evolved into something else. He took the ring from the box. I want to do it again. Properly this time. No audience. No ulterior motives. Just us, choosing each other with open eyes. Maya's breath caught. You can see me now. Not completely. Not clearly. His lips curved into the half-smile she'd grown to love. But I see enough. I see what matters. He held the ring between them, an offering rather than a foregone conclusion. Maya Rodriguez, who makes terrible coffee at 3 in the morning and hums when she thinks no one's listening. Who stood beside me when I had nothing to offer but broken promises and half-light. Will you marry me again? Not for a year, not for show. For real this time. Maya looked at the man before her, at the eyes that would never see with perfect clarity but had somehow seen her more completely than anyone ever had. At the hands that had learned every contour of her face through touch alone. At the life they had built in the space between shadow and light. Yes, she said simply. I will. He slipped the ring onto her finger, where it nestled against the ostentatious diamond she rarely wore anymore. The contrast between them, between the woman she had pretended to be and the woman she had become, couldn't have been more stark. There's something else you should know, Ethan said, his expression turning serious. The board voted today on another matter. They've approved funds to continue Dr. Patel's research. There's a second-generation implant in development. In a year or two, there might be a chance for fuller vision restoration. Maya studied his face, reading the complex emotions there. Is that something you want? I don't know, he admitted. There was a time when I would have given anything to see clearly again. But now. He reached for her hand. I've learned there are different ways of seeing. Different kinds of clarity. The twilight deepened around them, the garden fading into shadow. But Ethan's eyes remained fixed on her face, focused in the way that had become familiar, not quite meeting her gaze but finding her nonetheless. Whatever you decide, Maya said, I'll be here. In darkness or in light. As night fell completely, they remained on the terrace, talking softly about the future, about art lessons and new business ventures, about possible second surgeries and definite second weddings. About choices made with open eyes, even when those eyes saw imperfectly. And in the space between them, in the gentle pressure of his hand in hers, in the soft click of the ruby ring against her water glass, something rare and precious continued to grow, a love born in darkness, flourishing in half-light, strong enough to endure whatever illumination might come. In the story of Maya and Ethan, we discover that true vision has little to do with eyesight and everything to do with perception. Their journey reminds us that we often see most clearly through the heart when our ordinary senses fail us. For Maya, raised in foster care and accustomed to invisibility, being truly seen was more miraculous than any medical breakthrough. For Ethan, blindness became the pathway to recognizing authenticity in a world that had previously dazzled him with superficial brightness. Their story teaches us that vulnerability, not perfection, forms the foundation of genuine connection. It was only when they acknowledged their fears, their limitations, their desperate needs, that they could build something real together. Perhaps most powerfully, their journey speaks to the courage required to step beyond the boundaries of our past. Maya had to believe she deserved more than mere survival. Ethan had to accept that some kinds of vision could never be restored by surgery. In our own lives, we face similar challenges. Do we define ourselves by our limitations or our possibilities? Do we measure worth by what we can see or what we can feel? Do we choose security over vulnerability, past patterns over new beginnings? Maya and Ethan's story offers no easy answers, only the gentle suggestion that sometimes, in the space between darkness and light, between what we can see and what we can only sense, lies our greatest capacity for love and transformation. If this story touched something deep within you, if you felt Maya's fear of being truly seen or Ethan's struggle to navigate a world that suddenly turned dark, I invite you to pause and consider your own journey. Where in your life are you hiding, afraid to be truly seen? What limitations have you accepted as permanent that might actually be doorways to deeper connection? Who do you love for their surface qualities, and who do you love for their essence? These questions aren't easy, but they're worth asking. Because like Maya and Ethan, we all navigate the delicate balance between vulnerability and protection, between what we can see and what we can only feel. Share this story with someone who needs to be reminded that their value doesn't lie in perfection but in authenticity. Someone who might be struggling to see clearly, either literally or figuratively, in their own life. Subscribe to our channel for more stories that explore the complexity of human connection, the courage required for transformation, and the unexpected beauty found in life's shadows. Because ultimately, the most profound vision isn't what we see with our eyes, but what we recognize with our hearts when we dare to look beyond surface appearances to the truth beneath.